in the last segment that it's kind of stuck with me. I want to get your thoughts on it. He said NC State is trash.
I was being edgy.
But it's just a false statement. I mean, it's a team that's lost to Clemson and Tennessee, and I mean, I know they're 3-3, Matt. But what do you make of this NC State squad?
You should hear what NC State says about Pauly.
Not what you say about me, man.
Look, I'm the burden that it would get to take me to say that anything like that is trash is pretty damn high. I think what Pauly's probably getting at is that they tend to wind up below expectations. I don't even know if that's necessarily true. I know they haven't really gotten over the hump. Yeah, they're not competitive at the conference championship level and haven't been really in their whole history. I mean, it really is incredible for how long NC State is at it and how much they value it. They've got a very good coach in Dave Doran. They have resources. It just hasn't worked out for them. They have a pretty good team this year, I think. I don't think it was a fluke or an accident that they started the season ranked, and it just hasn't worked out for them. They found a way to lose 3 games, and they're 0-2 in conference. So I think it's unfair to say they're trash. Relative to the sellout, I just caught the tail end of what you're talking about there, relative to the sellout streak and all that. It's because they love football and they value it, and they've got a stadium they can fill up, and they make a great game day showing, and they do have a lot of the makings and a lot of the resources where you think that they would have more banners to hang, but it just hasn't been quite enough for them historically.
How does the quarterback change affect this game? And we know C.J. Bailey's played a lot this year because Grayson McCall's been dealing with concussions, but they finally get him back, then they lose him again in the Wake Forest game. How does that NC State offense change with C.J. Bailey running the show?
Yeah, I mean, I think that has to do with the maturity and the growth of Bailey. I don't think anybody would choose to have a freshman at quarterback if they could avoid it. Obviously, he's got attributes and a great background, and he looks the part and looks like he could grow into being a sensational athlete. I mean, the first just flipping the game on the other day, the first impression you have is, wow, look how skinny this guy is. Well, that's partly because he's 6'6", and he can play. I think from a Syracuse perspective, you'd feel a whole lot better if, again, with all due respect to Grayson McCall, who's a very good and accomplished college player, this is not an emergency sub of the quarterback all of a sudden. To your point, they've had to go through this before. So Bailey actually has almost half again the number of pass attempts this year than McCall does, and all of that, and Bailey has had some success. So you got to plan on Bailey being the starter. I've heard Coach Brown say a couple times today that they're preparing for McCall. I think that's what you say. I mean, it'd be stunning to see somebody who took that hit last week to play this week. So we'll see. Maybe they do play both quarterbacks. Bailey obviously not as seasoned, but he's not a complete amateur or just off the street or just out of high school here. This guy's played quite a bit this year already, so there's a track record on him.
It's our first chance to talk to you since the UNLV game, and you look back on last Friday, and they had a lot of things go wrong, right? I mean, the 2 botched punts that led to 14 points. There was the McCord interception midway through the fourth when they're about to take the lead, and then UNLV goes down and pulls ahead. To win that game, Matt, on the road against a pretty darn good opponent, what does that say about this program? And I guess what does it say about, Fran Brown as a head coach?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it's a statement about the program right this second. What it does say about the team, from my standpoint, is they know who they are. They know where their strengths are. They have veteran player leadership. I love the story coming out of that game that when the players were given some input about the approach here, do we go for 2 if we tie? We go for a tie, we go for 2, we go in overtime. What's the plan? That they felt like, look, we're better prepared for a longer haul. They use kind of the boxing analogies and that kind of thing going into it, and that runs counter to convention. Typically, you say the longer the game goes, the more home field advantage comes into it. That's why you're supposed to, when you're on the road in this situation, grab the brass ring while you can, and you go for it. You go for two. And I love the rationale, and I think it only helps reinforce who they are. That game, you guys have talked about it all week. The game-winning plays by LaQuint Allen at the end of regulation and in overtime are representative of what this team is about. So that's really cool. I also think it continues to evolve, although we're getting to that midway point of the season here. You start to have a sense of who this team is. And right now they've got good veteran players that have, for the most part, stepped up when needed. I love the fact that we've had years here where there were no lead changes in the games. The fact that they bounced back from trailing is a positive sign. I mean, you'd prefer to not trail, but if you are going to be behind, it doesn't mean the game is over. Third and long doesn't mean you're punting necessarily, and punting obviously has been a real sore spot and a disaster in a couple cases. So you put your energy toward that, and I think it's always good when you got items to work on and improve, and you're doing it off a win.
Matt, what do you make of the special teams? We had Coach Brown on, and he said exactly what Adam said on the air. Two guys, it wasn't scheme, it was two guys whiffed on the block. Do you think that they've put more effort into that this week? And do you think it was an issue with coaching or just the players not executing?
It's the latter in my mind. I mean, obviously they put more effort on it this week, and I got, just like everybody else did, I'm sure. I mean, I got the texts and the tweets, fire the special teams coach. Everybody's got to go. That's not how it works. Do you think they're drawing up a scheme that has big open holes in it, or they're inviting punts to be blocked? Of course not. But you tend to have less experienced players on special teams, or people that are involved in, they're not necessarily starting at other positions. Sometimes when they are, that can be an excuse that they're tired from the drive you just ran and stalled out or whatever. So it's obvious that people are missing assignments. The one at NC State, or at Vegas rather, that was blocked. I mean, there were four guys. They could have taken the ball off the foot of Jack Stonehouse. And to me, one of the reasons that this is a big issue, obviously you can't have punts blocked, but you have one of the better punters in the whole country. So just give him a chance, and you're flipping the field, and every time you punt, you're gaining, in theory, 40-plus yards of field position. So let him do his thing. You don't have to be spectacular. You're not downing everything inside the 5 or any of that. So just block them up. I know they considered everything. Coach Brown told me this morning, he said every member of the coaching staff had input on it this week. So they obviously have talked about what their options are. Do you go from 2-man to 3-man protection, and what are the trade-offs of those things? And so I'm sure they've explored it all. I would be stunned if that's an issue again the rest of the year.
I do want to ask you a basketball question before we go, but let's get your thoughts on how you see this game playing itself out Saturday night, and then we'll talk a little basketball before we part ways.
Yeah, I think it may be similar to the UNLV game, and two teams that are both capable, maybe trading some points and trading some paint, or however it works out, and coming down to a one-possession game at the end. And I like this theme. It's kind of top of my mind because we've just talked about it with Coach Brown, and I know you guys did too. Before you can win, you got to keep from losing, right? We've heard Bill Belichick and other people, Bill Parcells, say it that way. What are the one or two plays that swing the game here? That's why special teams has gotten the attention that it's gotten so far, because while, yes, they've overcome it when they've had blocked punts, those have been game-losing plays. And they've also made their share of game-winning plays, like Jackson Meek's touchdown reception or LaQuint Allen's run. So I see it coming down to one or two key bounces of the ball and key plays here. Tough to win down there on the road, but I think you got a puncher's chance for sure, and looking forward to it. I think you're looking at another close game on the road, and if you do win it, it's obviously historic to win back-to-back true road games. It hasn't happened in a dozen years.
ACC Media Day going on down in Charlotte for basketball. Syracuse spoke this morning. What are you most looking forward to seeing about this new team?
Well, again, it's state of affairs in college sports. You're dealing with an entirely new roster. I think the most exciting part about this particular roster is that these guys are brought here to fit into a certain vision that Adrian Autry has. When I say his guys, it doesn't mean that the ones who left weren't his guys, but he's kind of picking people with an idea of what they bring to the table, not necessarily because they're all superstars or anything like that, but they have a fit. I think they'll have a much better locker room this year than in the last couple of years. So he's a big believer that stuff really matters and plays itself out on the court. So I'm excited to see that. Every year we talk about what's the growth of the individuals. We're going to talk a little more about Chris Bell. And again, to this point in his career, he's been very good at one thing. And to have a winning team, in my mind, you've got to be good at a lot of different things. So how do they make that happen? Having a big man that's a different makeup than they've had. So there are a lot of intriguing pieces. So the early part of the season, as we learn the makeup of this team, will be a lot of fun.
All right, Matt. Good stuff. Heritage Hill tonight for the Fran Brown Show. We appreciate you coming on. Have a good trip down to NC State. We'll talk to you again.